oh, I didn't even realize you had this other stuff, because it's not part of their vernacular. It's not part of their positioning. It's not part of who they are as a business.
Hi, I'm Russ.
And I'm Danny.
And this is the Memory Makers Podcast,
the show that helps you make incredible customer experiences and make more memories.
Memory Makers Podcast. Rock you like a hurricane?
That's what I thought it was, but I wasn't 100% sure. My mind was there.
They all get bastardized to a certain extent, so it's just if we're in the neighborhood, that's good enough. I've missed you, man. You've been world traveling for a couple of weeks and seeing amazing things, and I'm excited to dive into this episode with you. I wanted us to focus on self-limiting or self-imposed limitations that we sometimes put on ourselves. And one of the things and why this was top of mind for me was recently when we were wrapping up Amusement 360, one of the kind of takeaways that I had gotten from that when listening to you and Michelle's talk was, a lot of businesses can grow only to the level of the owner's mindset. And there can be a real importance that doesn't get paid attention to improve processes and execute the fundamentals. So that way you have more bandwidth, like we talk about regularly, of how do we get you working on the business instead and not as much in the business where it doesn't make sense. And so I thought I'd kick it off to you and have you talk a little bit about some of those self-imposed limitations and how we can start to put in some framework to engineer that out of being an issue for us.
Yeah, so I've got a few things that I want to hit on here. And there's a lot of ways we could take this, but one of the first things that comes to mind is when we look in our business, we're all going to have problems, always, forever, right? We will all have problems in our business. There will never be a point in time where all problems go away and everything's perfect. We just simply graduate to new sets of problems or have different problems that show up. So the goal is not to eliminate. The goal is not to get to a point where they don't happen. It's to just graduate to a better set of problems. And what will happen sometimes is there's a difference between the root problem and a symptom. And a symptom is easy to identify. And typically that's the thing that we initially want to try to attack, but it's just band-aiding, and it doesn't actually fix the root. And so it's with any problem that you're facing, it's really important to step back and recognize what is the root of this problem. I think the example that I used during Amusement 360 was, okay, let's say that your arcade revenue is down. That's the symptom, the revenue being down. But the root cause could be, well, maybe the game mix isn't right for your demographic. Maybe the layout doesn't really work, and there are certain sections that are just getting missed by guests. Maybe there's too much friction in buying or reloading cards. Maybe the price points don't match what they need to. Maybe there's so many different things, and every one of these potential root causes has very different solutions. And so it's really important to recognize what is the root cause of this and attack that, and the symptoms will take care of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that it comes up with the whole self-imposed limitations that I think is really fascinating. I'm going to use bowling venues as an example, but this can be applied to any type of business. It's the manner in which you describe your business, the identity that you give your business. So, for example, if there is a traditional bowling center that's been open for 30 years and they're, let's say, maybe removing some lanes and adding and expanding arcade and doing more food and beverage and adding a couple attractions, and they're becoming more of a family entertainment center. Very often, those owners still say, we're a bowling center, we're a bowling center, we're a bowling center. But the problem with that identity is that when they consider themselves a bowling venue, every problem will be looked at through the lens of bowling instead of the lens of an entire family entertainment center. And it will really limit the kinds of ideas and solutions they could come up with to implement in their venue. And it also then immediately focuses everything on bowling, which still is probably the most important attraction that you have in this particular example, but it kind of ignores the rest of the business that you just spent a lot of money investing in. And so I think realizing the ways that you label and identify your business has an impact on how you see your business and the ideas that you come up with and the creative solutions that you have to solve problems is really important to know that.
So, hey, Danny, question for you, because I agree. I think that it can also trickle into things that have very like tactile, pieces that you're putting together, like in your search engine optimization now, because so many people are using like, hey, I'm just going to chat GPT and using that as my search engine, or I'm going to Google Gemini and using that as my search engine. Well, now they're having like GEO or generative, engine optimization, where what and how you're even putting in the text and how you're positioning yourself on your website then is going to prompt different search results. And so if you're thinking of yourself as a bowling, entertainment venue, great, but like you need to start adding some of that expansive language into your assets in order for these new tools to be able to, kind of pluck you out of this pigeonhole and put you in front of customers.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And it also, in those circumstances, I know I'm using sort of a hypothetical example, although I've talked to bowling owners who've fallen into this kind of trap, but I think it's applicable for anybody. But in
Totally.
those situations, it can be very common if they still do all of their marketing and all their positioning through bowling centric. There will be people who walk in and say, "Oh, I didn't even realize you had this other stuff."
Hmm.
Because it's not part of their vernacular. It's not part of their positioning. It's not part of who they are as a business. They're still viewing themselves as a bowling business with some other stuff.
Well,
And so it's just important to remember how that impacts the way you think, but also the way that your customers perceive you or can find you online.
that's why you're starting to even see, even traditional, like from the jump, if they've started in like, hey, we're a multi-node attraction venue or whatever, LVE, FEC, insert your alphabet soup here. That like you look at a business like a Main Event, well, their slogan was eat, play, bowl. Like they're a bowling center, but they're telling you in all of their messaging, like it is food and socialization and also bowling, in there. And so if you want to be this venue of where, and you need to view yourself as a vehicle for where people are coming together for that social play or that food and beverage, like it's not just the attraction side. It's how then are we positioning all of that? Because to your point, we now will start to look at this through, hey, we're a multifaceted business that, and so we need to approach problems that way.
Yeah, and another part of this, when we're thinking about the self-imposed kind of limitations that we have, one of the big ones is busyness, saying yes to too many things. Because sometimes people wear busy as a like a badge of honor,
Yeah.
but our goal is to be effective, not busy,
Yeah.
right? And I think that, and it's also to be effective, not efficient, right?
Yeah.
Because I've seen efficiency is being able to do something really quickly or with limited resources. But you can be really efficient at all the wrong things. That doesn't make you effective. Effectiveness is being efficient at the right things. And we can all fall in the trap of being so busy that we're just firefighting and bouncing from one thing to the next, but we don't have a chance to step back and think strategically or have some planning sessions or be able to intentionally lead the team and delegate to others. We're just so in the weeds that is very much limiting our ability to grow ourselves, to grow our team, and grow the business. And there's a quote from Alex Hormozy that he talks about is your business can only scale to the level your systems can handle. And if we're just stuck in the weeds all the time and we haven't taken a step back to develop these systems, our goal is never good, or our business will never be able to outpace those systems.
Hmm.
And going back to what you said at the beginning of this section, Russ, when you introed it, is it reminds me of John Maxwell's The Law of the Lid, which is from his book, 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, which states that you, as the entrepreneur, I'm just speaking to the listener here, you are the lid that limits the potential and growth of your business. If you want your business to grow, you need to grow. And so all of us, we have a responsibility to continue elevating our skills, elevating our leadership, elevating our effectiveness, and elevating our own personal growth to allow the business to grow. Because
Hmm.
that is one of the mechanisms that will allow it to happen. So all of these things tie into the way that we staff and our guest experience and delegation and uh, you know being able to deliver a good experience when we're at peak volume on a busy Saturday during the busy season.
Mhm.
All of these things play a part in that. And I think it's important to see how we can remove some of those limitations to be able to scale to the next level.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think having like when we're evaluating what's our systems and our processes, those are born out of really solid fundamentals. And sometimes it's easy to either have some drift on those or they evolve and then things get kind of lost in the sauce. And so are we consistently coming back and making sure that we are regularly getting time to self-evaluate, both you as an owner of, okay, what's working, what's not? Am I talking to team members? What's their perception of this? To make sure that it's not just getting swept under the rug, but also putting time in for whether how we're staffing, what goes into our training, what is the guest experience actually coming out to be, all of that stuff. Like these the best businesses that I see out there, and whether it's entertainment or insert anything here, is regularly seeing that consistency will beat out intensity over time, right? Like that tortoise and the hare, Aesop's fable. It's a cliche for a reason, where we can put all of this effort and energy, and I think it even ties into your effective versus efficient kind of route. Like we need to be diligent and consistent about evaluating and training our staff on the little things, so it becomes secondhand, right? They become unconsciously competent around it, right? Where it's just built, wired into them. They understand how to get from A to B based on our North Star. And so when it comes to things like staff training, like what team members do you have that are specifically focused on continuous training for the team? That may not be their only goal or responsibility, but like, who are your rock stars? How do you get them to collaborate on, hey, this is what, help them identify, this is what we do really well, and this is why we do it this way. And then are they, doing spot checks, or are you as a team allocating time each week of, hey, we're going to go through and run some role plays or do these things that are not the customer facing, main primary line of the job, but are we running reps, right? Like I think of, professional athletes, they spend so much more time practicing and training and doing all of that work. And where by comparison, either the amount of time that they're in an actual game, it's this fraction of it. And it's not that you need to be, the full tilt Steph Curry. Okay, I'm going to go shoot 1,000 shots, or I'm going to make 1,000, practice cold calls and role play. Like, again, flip it to how you need it. But if we're not putting in good, consistent times, and we only look at the training checklist and then we're off to it and we're just kind of keeping the skis downhill and we're never coming back and looking at it, we're not seeing how we can change things, and we're not getting feedback from our frontline staff. So that training and having protected time set aside, and doing it in efficient ways where, hey, if it's, these are some new things that we need to have, great, we're going to send it out on the newsletter, we're going to touch on it here, and here, and then we're going to have everybody kind of check off that they've got it. Like you can use the everyday vehicles to make sure that you're over communicating certain things. But like if we've got a new attraction coming in and it shows up and we get the sign off from the vendor when they, kind of walk in, like what are we then doing for our entire staff to then make sure that they're exposed to it, they know how to talk about it, they're comfortable and confident with it in order to be an ambassador for it. And so that to me is something where it's hard because it's not a cheap resource to allocate and make sure that we're going back to there and doing it. But man, how many problems does it solve where, ooh, hey, we're not missing opportunities now because our staff is really dialed in. We're actually able to capture more revenue. To take a look at is like, how does your team systematically capture the everyday pain points of what they're going through on the job, so that way you can have a good prioritized list of, these are things that need attention, right? These are fixing the stuff that bugs us in order to keep folks happy, and really focused on the main things that are going to move the needle. And so we've talked about, sometimes we chase a new attraction to draw guests, and that may be the right move, or it could be simple things of finding a new way of, doing something or working around a problem. But on this point, Danny, you had mentioned there's a really cool quote by Will Guidara. Who was that?
Gadara.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So he is the author of Unreasonable Hospitality. He's also the
Mm.
former owner, I believe, or top manager for 11 Madison Park, which was at one point the best restaurant in the world. And part of the way that he got it there is through some of the hospitality things that he did. And one of the things that I heard on a podcast, he was saying how they wanted to understand their entire guest experience from beginning to end. And so he gathered every single person from the restaurant. This is the greeters, the servers, the managers, the cooks, the dishwashers, literally every single person, and put them in groups at tables and said, I want each of you in as intricate and detailed as you possibly can, label and write out every single step and touch point in the entire customer journey from beginning to end.
Mm.
And they detailed it out, and I think he said, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was north of 100 different steps, because they went as intricate as possible to understand what it was beginning to end, and to identify what are the ones that suck and don't work. What are the
Yeah.
ones we just need to completely rethink how we do, change, and come at it from a completely different angle? What are the ones that we do just because everyone else does it that exact same way, and how can we be different? And
Yeah.
it allowed them to identify some of these pain points to fix.
I love that. Well, and that's the thing, right? To our one of our favorite quotes around here, it's like you need to be told, you're only told something once, you need to be reminded of it, and you need to be brought back to it. And whether it's we become nose blind to certain things, or we're just so stinking busy that then, oh shoot, maybe that didn't get done, this part of the process, we didn't document this as much as we should, or is it actually working based on what's changed in our business, to do that. And the last thing that I'll talk about as far as kind of good fundamentals that don't, in my opinion, get enough love would be that guest recovery and your follow-up systems for engaging those folks. I don't think that you need to get into full like trolling bots wars with dissatisfied customers, obviously. But I think that there's so many more good tools that are out there in the landscape these days of being able to flag and tag those reviews and coming up and being able to generate better responses for it, or moving it offline, and or actually setting that up on either a manager or an owner's calendar in order for them to reach out and have a conversation with that person to find out, like, hey, was this just some keyboard warrior venting, or is there actually something that we need to be focusing on and addressing here, that was a bigger one. And so there's so many good tools on that front, but those would be the three kind of fundamentals that really help us take a look in the mirror, start to identify where we're having these friction and pain points, either in the guest experience, how we're training, and then, following up and making sure that that's actually translating.
So I also want to talk about the next point being here of building a culture that doesn't depend solely on the owner. And I've had these conversations with lots of people, and the thing that we see again and again, whether it's the owner operator or maybe it's the top level manager, because they have the responsibility to do these things, is that that person becomes the bottleneck for everyone, because every manager and every shift lead and every supervisor and every whatever has to go through them and get approval and ask them questions, or they don't feel like they have the authority, the responsibility, the confidence to be able to take care of something themselves. And so there's kind of a couple parts of this. One is being able to build in a culture where you give people the responsibility and the authority to fix problems in the moment. And that could be when they're interacting with a guest, of being able to giving them up to a certain dollar amount and ability to just be able to give a gift card or solve a problem on their own without needing the permission of a manager. Just be able to let them do that, because we've all been to, let's say, a restaurant or somewhere, and there's some small issue we bring to our server's attention. And the first response that we hate hearing is, oh, let me go, I need to go get my manager. It's like, no, we don't need that. You can just solve this now. Don't put our customers through that same experience.
Yeah.
Find a way to give your team the ability to do that. And when they do, provide coaching afterwards. Because sometimes the decision that the employee or the manager will make in that moment is a good one in your eyes. And sometimes it's not so great. But what I've seen happen sometimes is, okay, the owner gives that person the ability to fix the problem. That person comes up on an issue with a customer, fixes the problem in a way that the owner doesn't like, and the owner comes down like a hammer on them and just completely destroys their morale, and they never want to make a decision again. We have to be aware that we need to be able to encourage the behavior of taking it in their own hands to solve them and solve the problems, and when necessary, give corrective guidance and feedback to get them back on track instead of just um, punishing them for doing it in a way that you didn't like,
Yeah.
because then they're never going to do it again in the future. So there's one side is, whoops, I hit my microphone. One side is giving them the ability to and the authority to do that, but the other side is also building in the confidence that they can do it, because they can have the authority, but if they don't feel confident in the decision making, guess who they're going to come back to every time? You.
Hmm. Yeah.
And giving them and building that confidence over time is a part of that. And when we approach problems, we as the higher level managers or the owners, right? That's the royal we I'm talking about here. The way we approach problems is so important. The energy we bring to problem solving is crucial, because if we're completely frantic and chaotic all the time, guess what our team's going to be? Completely chaotic and frantic all the time. But if we can bring a calm, confident energy, yes, we can have urgency. Yes, there could be things that are serious that need to be taken care of. But if we can bring a calm energy to how we solve those problems, we can be that role model for our teams that they can then emulate the way that we show up and be able to bring that same kind of feeling and mentality into the way that they solve problems. And there's
Mm.
the idea of the metaphor, be be a duck, where above water a duck is when it's in the water just swimming along, just looks super calm, just easing right along, but under the water their legs are flapping in really fast. It's like being a duck. Inside, we can be thinking and kind of going through and trying to solve these problems really fast. There's a lot happening that we're trying to figure out. But if on the outside, above the water, we can appear calm and confident, it lends that ability to our team to do the same.
Mm. Yeah. I think that even making sure that, okay, how am I showing up in stressful situations, and really getting into that mindset of, ooh, okay, take your breath, process, and then let's kind of jump into it. It's totally one of those of like, well, shoot, do I even want to bring this to this person? Because every time I bring up a problem, they're gonna, I'm gonna have to go through a little temper tantrum or something else, and so you don't want to create these negative Pavlovian responses to where they either don't want to bring stuff to your attention, or that if they do and it's not exactly how they would have done it themselves, that then, hey, instead of getting coached up of, I appreciate what you were trying to do, let's talk it through, like what led to this, and also if it comes up again, how do we want to tackle that as a standard, and then making that employee responsible for kind of getting that out to the rest of the group and sharing that so everybody can actually learn from it too, is a really critical step of like, how do we keep these things out of silos and out of vacuums, for sure. um one thing that I would love to do as kind of a tactical takeaway, or some applications that folks can have in their everyday conversations based on what we've reviewed on the episode so far, would be, are you as a leader asking what habits that have improved your leadership the most? So taking some time and thinking through, like, what have I done recently that's been a positive impact? Ooh, if I'm having a hard time thinking of some, I should probably lean into pouring back into the well a little bit. What mindset shifts have changed how you approach the business? So what are some of these lessons? Because again, as you're trying to coach up and duplicate yourself and get more people seeing and thinking about things from an ownership mentality, those are impactful lessons to be able to share with that team. And then, what do I need to do more of, and what do I need to do less of in order to not be a bottleneck? So are there things on my plate that, gosh, I just am not, delegating this because I feel bad because I'm giving somebody else work and I should just be able to do it all? And it's like, well, okay, great. That still doesn't solve your problem, and we're still going to have bottlenecks, and I need to do that. Shout out personal accountability with Mike as we're working on podcast scheduling or other things like that, where it's like, nope, I need to just let Mike be turned loose, and I need to stop getting in the way on certain things. Like that is a good piece of like, what are these habits that have impacted me the most? What mindset shifts have really helped me? And then what do I need to do more of and less of in order to avoid creating some of these bottlenecks? And those are three really good questions to regularly ask yourself, to do a little bit of self-scout and audit of how am I showing up for the people that I care about? How am I helping them do more and be better? And I think it makes a big difference. The big thing that I will always encourage folks is just patience during this growth. Yes, we want to see results, but this is planting those good seeds. And especially when it's culture related and everything else, like it takes reps to get that to where your team knows that, hey, we're serious and sticking with this thing. And they're asking me this again and again because it's coming from a place of them caring and they actually want to do this. And so doing, that patience is really critical. And I think separating ego from decisions, and, you told me this, Danny, and I'm still struggling with it, is learning to say no. Like, are there things that I'm saying yes to that I shouldn't be and that someone else should take point on?
When you were saying the patience during growth, I was just thinking about well, I want it now. I've been going to the gym for a week. Why am I not fit yet? It's like, it takes time.
Takes
All
some
this
time.
stuff takes time.
Yeah. I
Uh,
love it.
there was, as we were planning out this episode and we were figuring out how we wanted to wrap it up, because I know a lot of times you like asking a resource, a book, a quote, a
Yes.
podcast from guests. And I had a quote that came to mind immediately based upon the content we've been doing for this episode that I wanted to share to close out today's episode. And it is, how am I complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want?
Mm.
Because we all have things that we say we don't want in our life and in our business. And if we take a step back and we're really introspective, sometimes those things are showing up because of something we're doing or not doing. And so this thing that we say we don't want, we're actually responsible for. So if we do some of these changes of what do we need to do more of, what do we need to do less of, how can I shift my mindset, can change some of the things in our business, because we have so much more agency and impact that I think sometimes we give ourselves credit for. Sometimes we just think, oh, well, this thing just sucks and I'm not responsible. But it's like, actually, that's your fault. Like, to say it really bluntly, like, this is happening because of you, or this is happening because of me. And if we make some shifts and adjustments, that thing goes away and then we become a lot happier. So I think that goes hand in hand with what we've been talking about today. And that feels like a pretty good place to wrap up.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you all. If there's anything that you guys have for future episodes, and again, come here and check them out wherever you get your podcasts. We put one out each week, and we would love insights from you. If there's anything from a topic or discussion or guest that you would like us to have on, hit us up on social media. And also, I'm sorry, Danny, we've been out of the mix on this one. Also, if we'd love a 5-star review, please and thank you. That always helps. And a big shout out to Mikey Mike on the ones and twos working the Ultranet for us.
He's working that Ultranet. See,
he's working the Ultranet. Yeah, I'm sorry, dude. Anyway, you guys, in case you think, oh, it's so clean and so polished and everything else, it's like sometimes we need to get back into the groove. We've done hundreds of these episodes and we stumble every once in a while. So, know that we can just file that one off in we'll be better next time, and we'll stay after it. But thank you all so much for joining us and giving us the opportunity to nerd out with you today, and we'll catch you on the next one, troublemakers.